Thank you very much. Mr. Agnew.
Thank you, Chairman. We're discussing this agricultural markets task force report. It is straying into a couple of areas possibly where the EU shouldn't tread. One of these is that the EU has no competency over commercial law, and some of the recommendations in this report would need to be activated like this, but the EU doesn't have the competence to do it. Again, where it comes to talking about tax averaging and capital allowances, income tax exemptions, that again is a member state competence and can't really be influenced by what happens here. There was a section on price reporting, and there is quite a lot of this being done. Now, most people know what the farmers get for sugar beet, they know what they get for wheat, they know what they get for eggs. Journalists do a certain amount of digging, but at the other end of the scale, everybody knows the price of things in the different supermarkets. So I would need one or two more examples for Mr. Raymond as to what he's actually looking for. Is it what the processor is being paid by the supermarket? I think there is a fair amount of reporting being done. The groceries adjudicator was mentioned, the code adjudicator. This is, we feel, beginning to get some traction in the United Kingdom. I would hate to see it being changed by legislation from here. There has been one scalp. I feel we're competent to run this ourselves and wouldn't want to see a change in it. Futures trading has been mentioned. I was surprised that Martin Häusling seems less opposed to it as he was. But it's something that is quite voluntary, that has worked very well. It disappoints me that the EU has got involved in this and saying that people shouldn't speculate in it. Actually, futures markets don't work unless there is some speculation. That's the whole point of it. They mustn't be over-speculated, but you need some speculation. If you want to get rid of volatility to producers, well, there is such a thing as vertical integration, and you can, if you want to, have a feed-linked price contract with the supermarket. I personally do this. If the feed price rockets, the supermarket automatically gives me a higher price for my eggs. They are the shock absorbers. That was my choice. The options are there, but it means you lose independence. You're waving your microphone, Chairman. I'm sorry, I've gone on longer than I should have done. My apologies.
In relation to the coordinators and the Parliament, I think everybody accepts that action is required. We are prepared to consider action, but of course we are working closely with DG Grow and DG Competition on these issues as well. And in the College of Commissioners, this will be a requirement that we will have to have not just agriculture on its own, but we'll have to have a proposal that gets the attention and gets the agreement of others in the House as well. EU action is getting a strong voice here, I detect, with the exception of my good friend Mr. Agnew, of course, which you would expect as well. But the price shocks that Mr. Carty mentioned, well, we cannot predict the future with certainty, but certainly the sentiment is improving in the areas where we've had difficulties in the last 2 years in milk and pig meat. We hope it will continue. But beef farmers are certainly going to come under some pressure, as you know, in your own constituency. There are factors that outside the control of the European Union, but certainly relating to Brexit that are going to, and currency movements that are going to impact on that as well. But we have to keep monitoring this to see if action is required.
And you're right, Mr. Agnew. Vertical integration can be dangerous. It can also jeopardize the independent status of farmers if they find themselves in a situation of dependency. But we need as much transparency as possible, and we need farmers to participate in the value chain and ensure that they actually benefit from the value added. And I think that is where contracts can really help in this chain.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I first of all reply to Mr. Agnew, my very good friend Mr. Agnew, and can I thank Mr. Agnew for highlighting to the people today in the UK we've been very fortunate that our government has allowed 5-year tax averaging, and that's going to be a huge benefit to farmers going forward. And the grocery code adjudicator, which was appointed 2 years ago, has created a much better discipline through that supply chain from farmers through to retailers. again, there is a review of the adjudicator at the present time, and we'd like to see the powers strengthened. But I think there are some good results from the appointment of that adjudicator. Can I say to Mr Agnew, yes, there are some excellent investigative, challenging journalists, but if the supply chain is going to function correctly, we need that confidence through transparent price reporting rather than relying on journalists. And I think the challenge for all of us is how do we as farmers achieve a greater share of that retail value going forward. We all know the pressure that's been on farm incomes over the last 2 years, but how do we strengthen our hand in that supply chain? And I honestly do believe if we're going to create a greater share, greater power, then we will need to collaborate, and to collaborate and build the confidence that will be required, we need up-to-date data. And a lot of the data that's available today is out of date. Some of it can be 2 months out of date. And again, in the milk crisis of the last 2 years, there was huge market movements in milk products. So again, we need that up-to-date information, not just on the raw material, but on the products that are produced from that raw material. Because again, when that confidence is built, and we've got farmer representatives with equal power to the supply chain, processors, retailers, then I believe that confidence can help to deliver a fairer supply chain. We've seen it in the UK, where certain farmers who are part of formula pricing, they have groups, and again, people sit down, they evaluate cost of production, and again, those people haven't suffered the same pressure that some of us dairy farmers have. And can I say, future markets, fully support them. Future markets with up-to-date pricing in the cereal sector has worked exceptionally well over the last number of years. But again, if we are going to operate futures markets in milk products, in red meat, as Mr Pennings has said, then we're going to need liquidity. How do we achieve that liquidity in the marketplace? By building confidence. How do we build confidence? Through up-to-date data, where people have that transparency, and I believe that up-to-date data is required, and that is one of the immediate decisions that the Commission can make, is to deliver on market transparency, and I believe a lot of the other market managing risk can follow. Thank you.